Hi everybody. Good to see you all. Hope you're well. Hope you're doing well. And hope you're making the most of the situation that we have. Being able to go out and about. Um, the law for the any more than six people is coming to it is being enforced tomorrow. So make the most of it. This week I wanted to talk about memory. We all know we have good memories, we have bad memories. Many people forget, though, that they are memories. Memories are just thoughts. Thought has no impact. It cannot do anything to you. Thoughts aren't physical, are they? As you know, thoughts drift through our minds 24/7, 365 days a year. Between 60 and 90,000 thoughts a minute. Some of them are good. As I said, some of them aren't so good. That's just the human nature. That's the human condition. And memories are just those thoughts carried through time in our heads. That's all it is. It's like when you remember back of a really good film that you've seen recently or years ago. I still can play Saving Private Ryan in my head, all the best bits, on the beach. Doesn't make it real. It's just a thought. Yet, people believe that these thoughts, whether good or bad, are indicators of what will happen now or in the future. For example, how many people do you know that either through public life or private life who have really, really struggled all their life? And they've kept going and they've kept going and they've really struggled and they've chopped and they've changed the direction. And then one day, it all falls into place. And they're successful. Or they achieve whatever it is they're trying to achieve. Well, it's not because of they've changed the tactics. It's not because that they have worked with a different team. It's not because they have decided on a different tactic to what they were doing before. It's because they understood that what they did before cannot possibly have any impact on what they do today, nor in the future. And again, you can see straight away the flip side of that coin is people who've been really successful year after year after year after year. All these big companies, for example, that have been in the news, the big tech companies who can always be counted on for stockholders, shareholders, that kind of thing. Doesn't matter how well they do over the past 5 years, 10 years. It has no bearing on what they do now. It has no bearing on what the company does next week. Because it is just thought. People who've been successful athletes, year after year, month after month, they've done so well and they have one race where nothing seems to happen, nothing seems to go right for them. That's not a reflection of their skill. It's not a reflection of their abilities. It's not a reflection of the team they're with or who their manager is or the coach is. It's that they have innocently fallen into the trap of believing their past success would show them and guarantee their future success. That's not conscious. No one is naive enough to think, well, just because I did well last time means I'll do this time. It is deep-rooted, subconsciously. that we follow the pattern of success, believing that that success is preordained, it's set up ready for us. And that's where people make mistakes. That's where people create resistance. People, again, it's part of the human condition where people, for some reason, are doing really, really well. And again, we've seen all the stories where someone then becomes self-destructive. They create an issue in their life that brings them down or brings a company down or whatever scenario they're in. And it's because they create resistance. Not because they want to be self-destructive. It's because deep down, it's not what they want to do. It's not their true path. So no matter how successful they are, in their mind, they're trying to find something that they want to do, that makes them fulfilled. Not what brings money in for the company, not what keeps a roof over their house, not what is good for the shareholders. There were two monks, and the two monks had to travel from their abbey to another abbey, which is about 2 days' walk. In those days, there weren't any carts, and there were dirt roads. So what they do is they started their journey, and their order forbade them from having any contact at all with females. They couldn't look at them, they couldn't speak to them, and they certainly couldn't have any physical contact with them. And being aware of this, the two monks made sure that when they were walking on their journey, they would do their best to skirt around the villages, the hamlets, the towns, and to take the lesser paths, the wooded paths and the cliff-top paths away from civilization, so as not to even create the issue of the possibility of seeing a female, let alone speaking to one. And this was going well. They'd stopped for lunch, nice weather, and towards the end of day one, they came to a river. And at this point, the heavens opened and the rain started coming down. And there was no bridge. They were trying to work out, well, how do we get across there safely without falling and without being dragged into the river and taken downstream. And they were trying to work this out when suddenly a female appeared, and the female had a big bag over her shoulder, and it was clear that she had been walking some distance, and she had nothing on her feet, and her hands were dirty and her face was grimy, and of course she was cold and wet from the weather and the rain. And she called out to the monks. She says, "Please, sirs, can you help me, please? I need to get this bag of food across the river to my family. I've walked all day from the local market, and if I don't get it to my family, they won't be able to eat for another week." Now, the younger monk, remembering his vows, remembering the order, just turned away, pretended she wasn't there, did anything but look at her, trying to pretend he was thinking about how to get across the river, concentrating really hard on the way that the river was flowing and the wind direction and all the possibilities, all the sciencey bits that he knew. The older monk saw the girl, saw the situation she was in, and he said, "I will carry you across." Sure enough, the older monk lifted the girl onto his back with the bag, and the two monks then made their way across, waded across the river. Now, the river wasn't as deep as they thought it was. It only came up to their knees, and so they were okay. If they went slowly and they just watched the feet on the stone so as not to slip, there was a bit in the middle, there's a little bit of slipping there, but everything was fine, and they did manage to get across. And as they got across, the heavens seemed to have opened with the sunshine again. and the rain settled and the wind settled. And the older monk gently dropped the girl on the grass on the other side of the river, and she could not thank him enough. She thanked him, she thanked family, and she hoped that they would have a good journey moving forward. And she was then free then, and she did. She went to carry on her journey to carry the food to her family. When the girl had gone, the younger monk turned to the older monk and said, "Do you realize what you've done? Do you realize the shame you've brought upon the order? Do you realize that you're going to hell for what you've done?" And the older monk said, "What have I done?" And the younger monk laid into him with, "Not only did you see and look at the female, you spoke to her, and then you picked her up. You had physical contact with the female. That's a big no-no. You're going to go to hell for that one. You're going to be stripped of your monk thingy, cowl, and you're going to be disbarred, and you're going to be ostracized, and no one's going to talk to you ever again." And the older monk just carried on, and they carried on their journey. And all the way along this journey, the younger monk was reminding the older monk that he's going to hell, that he carried that female when it was expressly forbidden to even look at a female. That older monk dared to carry the female and dared to go up against the laws and of the order that he had joined and agreed to uphold. And it wasn't long, just before the end of the journey, when they came up to a wooded area, and the older monk hadn't said a thing since the other side of the river. And he turned round at this point and said, "Look," he said, "I carried the female across the river, and I put her down about 6 hours ago, and you are still carrying her in your head." If we let them, our stories and our thoughts of what we think is happening, if we let them, will affect us. But as soon as we see that all it is thought, has no impact on anything, you will have a better life. And that's where the transformation comes in. Where my clients, through their own insight, through me just talking like this, maybe asking a few questions, that's what I do. I don't say, "Here's the answer." I don't say, "There's an insight." I don't say, "No, you're wrong there." We just have a conversation. And what it leads to is their own insights, allowing their own transformation. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And have a good week. Till next time. Bye for now.